Hey, John, is that a haircut, man?
It is.
Look at you, buddy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right.
You've had an eventful 48 hours from what I've read.
Let me tell you how I chose this hairdresser.
Oh boy.
So as you know, and as listeners to this podcast know, I moved into a new house the end of February, just before lockdown happened, which meant that I moved into a new neighborhood. I don't have a barber. And of course, I have never had my hair cut at a barber in the new neighborhood because we haven't been able to go to them. So I'm walking around the neighborhood looking for a barber. And I'm not quite sure who I want to go to, which is not unlike cruising around the internet looking for a personal trainer. How do you possibly choose a barber?
Great. It's a great segue.
Somebody maybe recommends somebody to you.
Right.
Or how do you possibly choose barber? So I'm walking around the neighborhood. I'm like, well, I have no idea how to compare these barbers against one another or whatever.
Right.
And I look in one of the stores and Buddy has, I kid you not, a golden throne for a barber chair. And his equipment is gold with diamond studs. I was like, that's my guy. That is my guy.
Gold.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing.
It's the bling.
Ain't nobody going to go to that much trouble for some shitty haircut, right?
Yeah.
Like the online trainer academy with our textbook.
With the textbook.
Ain't nobody going to go to that much trouble for some bullcrap course. You cannot be a bad barber and be bought in that much that you have a golden throne for a chair.
That's amazing.
I don't know whether he's the best in the neighborhood. I don't know whether that he's better than a lot of other people, but I know for sure he's not bad.
This is the most ridiculous haircut story I've ever heard. Yet, it's ridiculous, yet it makes a tremendous amount of sense. I mean,
choose a barber. How do you choose a barber if you don't know? How do you choose a personal trainer if you don't know? You base it on cues of some sort of measure or belief that it's going to be pretty good, that you're not going to have a bad experience, that this person is probably, and how do you know that? Well, anybody can say anything. What do their accents show? What are they doing that backs up without anybody looking, that backs up what they're saying? You don't get a golden throne for your barber's chair.
No.
You are not bought in as a barber.
That's amazing.
It's the truth. By the way, just to interject, because I think this ties into Jonathan's story. Today we're going to talk about how to price your online training for max profit and max clients. Yes. Apparently, you need a golden phone, a golden laptop, and a diamond-studded set of dumbbells. But you bring up good points, Jonathan. That's amazing. That the barber had, who knew? That's incredible.
Yeah. The other thing that happened, to your point, what you were saying before, is our house almost burnt down last night.
Right. There's that also. Also, there was a fire.
We had a big fire. It was pretty crazy, man. 9:45 at night. The wires going into our house outside blew up.
Nice.
We had a huge storm here in Toronto. The hydro line workers who came later to fix it after the firefighters and everything had left basically said that probably the wires were faulty or were busted and water got into them because they noticed a bunch of water into them. And I'm in the shower with Calvin upstairs, and just outside, all of a sudden I hear basically what sounds like gunshots outside of a window, massive blue flashing outside of a window.
Wow.
And I go out, I'm like, what the is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I go to the shower and run out, and Calvin, of course, is like, what's happening, Daddy?
Right.
And I hear Allison yell downstairs, and anybody who's been with somebody for a long time knows different voices of
their voice. Yes.
I think I've maybe heard this worried tone to Allison's voice once before.
Right.
And all that she yelled from downstairs is John, get out.
Wow.
From downstairs. Because she was right by the kitchen. So I wrapped myself in a towel. I grabbed Calvin, and here's the crazy thing about adrenaline is we actually, neither Allison nor I remember either of us carrying Calvin downstairs. We actually don't know how he got downstairs.
Wow.
But Allison
blocked it out,
probably saved our house because she ran downstairs and turned off the main breaker.
Right.
And our neighbor also probably saved our house because all of our neighbors, of course, saw this, heard it, everything. I mean, literally, this thing blew up.
It's a big
Yeah.
thing.
right outside of our house. I mean, less than a foot away from our house, the wire is going in. And so a neighbor ran with a hose and sprayed it on. And like, first off, you don't spray wire on an electrical fire. There's your lesson for today. So Allison, the combination of Allison shutting off the breaker and this guy spraying wire, because at this point, by the time that we got outside, basically I handed Calvin off to Allison when we got downstairs somehow. So I guess I carried him down, maybe. And she carried him outside. I went in. I mean, it's pitch black right in our house because all the power's out because the wires are crushed. And I went and grabbed my phone just to call 911 and ran outside. And so we're all outside, safe. And the wires outside of our house, literally a foot away from our house, are on fire. Like there are flames coming down from each of them with spokes falling, which is of course good that it was so wet that they didn't catch any of our garden. And our neighbor had a hose and was spraying the fire and actually managed to extinguish it just before the firefighters came. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty real, man.
Terrifying. How scary. How did you even go to sleep last night? Like, how do you trust that nothing weird is going to happen again?
Well, because here's the thing. It didn't trip the breaker inside of our house. Nothing inside of our house was actually touched. So we actually don't know exactly why it happened. It was probably a result of the storm, and it was probably a freak thing. Because if it was anything inside of our house from any of the power that we were pulling from the system, it would have tripped the breaker. I mean, that's literally what breakers are for. If there's a surge in power, it trips them. It knocks off the power so nothing overheats and blows up. The fact that it didn't trip the breaker tells you that it didn't go to the house. The firefighters came and inspected everything, of course, inside. And, checked heat, like nothing was on, nothing was anywhere. And then Toronto Hydro came. And Toronto Hydro actually, the firefighters called Toronto Hydro to repair it. They showed up before the firefighters even left. And
super fast.
We're up on a ladder, cut the burnt wires, basically fixed it, put new connectors in there, and we flipped the breaker back on and the power's back on. Like within 2 hours, Kelvin was sleeping in his bed. But it's just, I mean, I wrote this on my Facebook. It's just this testament to it's the first time I've ever used emergency services. Never called an ambulance, I mean, I saw the doctor once in the last 12 years, right? First time I've ever used any of this. But obviously I pay a lot of taxes to the Canadian government.
Yeah. And it's worth it.
I'm so thankful for everything that our taxes go to and our emergency services do. I mean,
absolutely.
Every single person that came was diligent, professional, thorough, respectful, like on point, so nice. Just it made me so proud to live where I am. It made me so proud to pay taxes and contribute to the system. Just witnessing it, it's like, the one time I need it, I'm 34 years old, the first time I've ever needed it. They were there within, like I said, firefighters and everybody was there within 7-8 minutes, and the hydro workers were there within like 20 minutes.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was amazing.
They're amazing. Night. They really are. Yeah.
That reminds me so much of PT Distinction. PT Distinction helps you grow your business, increase your earnings, and train more clients. We worked out a great deal at PT Distinction through the wisdom and guidance of Jonathan Goodman. You can get 2 months at no cost, 60 days free. Just go over to onlinetrainer.com/PTD, not to be outdone. The Online Trainer Academy. It's the industry's gold standard in online trainer education, revealing powerful techniques and strategies guaranteed to get you results. Join us at onlinetrainer.com/academy. What a story.
Why does the train always honk its horn right when it goes by you?
I think it's because I say trainer and it's like, oh, we're on, guys. And then they just come by. They can't hear me out of the window. I can only hear them. But wow, that's a tremendous story. Jonathan, would you like to start the show? I'm going to give it over to you. You've had an eventful evening.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Goodman, and welcome to the Online Trainer Show. Today is episode 18. And yes, I got a very good haircut, and I did a workout just before this and smell really, really bad, which is why it's great you're listening to me on a podcast and are not here beside me talking to me. Today, we're going to be talking about how to price your services for max profit and, wait for this, max clients. Thanks for being here.
This is the Online Trainer Show. Trainer Show. Trainer Show. This is the Online Trainer Show. We shouldn't have a podcast. So, my favorite part about the start of the show today? Jonathan led. I said, you had an eventful couple of hours. He's like, yeah. And I got a haircut. And that was...
like there was also a fire, right?
And there was also a fire at my home, and my child and I rushed down the steps, wrapped ourselves in towels. Allison screamed out to me through, the most visceral scream I've heard from my wife in years. And
but he got a haircut,
and I got a haircut.
And once I was done, here's the kicker. Once I was done, Gabron, who's his name, first of all, I'm pretty good with languages. I mean, as you guys have heard and make fun of me a lot, I've been to a lot of other countries.
Right.
And so it's pretty rare that I can't identify what language people speak. It doesn't mean I understand it, but I know whether you're speaking Spanish or Portuguese or whether it's some Slavic language or whatever. I may not know the specifics.
Right.
I actually had no idea what these guys were speaking. And I'm pretty sure it was a Caribbean dialect of English. It was what is it called? Patois?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Patois.
Patois. Pretty sure it was Patois. And I kid you not, I had no clue.
Right.
It was the most foreign sounding language to me.
Of course, yeah.
That I've heard. And even when they were speaking to me, it was funny. They were like, "Hey, bossy, how you doing?" I was like, "Bossy."
Oh, man, yes.
It's almost like song. And I still have no idea whether it was Patois. I mean, I don't know. These guys I think were Caribbean.
Probably so.
It was wild. And so Gabron, once I was done on his golden throne, of course, I paid him. And I was taking my bike, and because I rode my bike there, and I rode my bike to work and whatever. And he diligently and meticulously wiped down every inch of his golden throne for the next customer.
Really? I'm sure they gave you great comfort.
I mean, it wasn't like the cleanliness thing. It was just this guy takes pride in what he does, man. Yeah. There's something here's another John Goodman story of when we were in Tokyo, and what jumped out to me. Yeah, it was bound to happen. What jumped out to me, I mean, for anybody who's been to Tokyo, they'll attest to that. It is the most incredible city you will ever go to, for every single reason. First of all, anything you want exists. The weirdest stuff. It's if you want 21-year-old Japanese girls to play video games while covered in Pepto-Bismol with you.
Okay.
There's literally a store for that.
I was concerned at a certain point, Jonathan.
Anything. There was a district. We went to see robot battles in the sub basement of this thing, and it was just this giant robot battle. But what's the most incredible thing is everything works perfectly all of the time on time.
Really?
They have the most intricate public transportation train system. Every single train is on time, on the dot, every single time. Everything is spick and span clean. Every store, every restaurant, every street, it is spick and span clean. And I don't know why, but one thing that we were told, and you notice it when you're there, is there's such a pride in what you do for everybody who does everything. In our culture, it's just the people who pick up garbage, or the people who whatever. It's in theirs, it's pride to be able to do that. Really? And they all have uniforms and white gloves, and they're proud to do those jobs. Really? And it's really beautiful to watch. Really, I mean, to see this, men will fall asleep outside of the subway because they're so tired, they're so overworked. And will have an $800 phone just sitting out of their pocket in front of them with money and bills out of their pocket, everywhere. And just nobody will steal anything. Mm-hmm. Nobody touches it. Yeah.
So they take a lot of pride in Tokyo.
I mean, there's something about Japan. You go there, you kind of, if you want to see how, I don't know, it's just this unbelievable feeling when you're there of pride.
I feel like I feel like taking pride in what you do connects very well to our topic today.
Absolutely. Good segue too.
Tell me why.
Did you see how I brought it back in?
Yeah.
Bring it back in. Bring it back in.
This also explains our numbers in Japan, Amber. Why we're so low in Japan. I couldn't figure it out, but they actually take pride in what they do. You'll get none of that here, Japan.
But Romania is very happy with this podcast.
Amber told me it was Finland. It's actually Finland.
Finland.
Yeah, they love us from start to finish. See what I did there? Finish. You get it? So
I don't think I do.
Amber got it. That's all that matters. So Keto, Jonathan monopolized your time as he often does.
Totally.
But everything. I mean, but in your defense, your house didn't catch on fire. And although your hair looks nice, Jonathan's cut is fresh.
Yes.
So
how can I compete?
You can't comppe with that.
No.
We'll have you chime in on the price factor. So get the noodle working, get warmed up, get your brain warm. We're gonna defer back to you. We're gonna circle back around to you to give some of your extra advice after we listen to Jonathan first, of course. Because he's the boss here. Well, Amber's the boss, but
we pretend like it's Jonathan.
Jonathan's the figurehead. He's like the face on the head of the ship. Amber's really the captain. So we crashes on him and not her. But Jonathan, talk to us about pricing, and because it's just a common question, right? Like we hear this a lot. Like right now, there are online trainers new to the market, and they are in a state of stress, trying to look at every single other person's price on the internet, for God's sakes, to figure out how much should I charge.
Yep.
So help us out here, Jonathan. We need you, sir.
How much time are you taking to deliver the service? That's the first question you ask. Why? How could you possibly begin to figure out what you're going to charge if you have no idea how much time it's going to take you? If it's you delivering the service, which is where most online trainers start. But really, here's what I want to hit on here, because we talked about packages and pricing in episode 5, I think, Amber?
I don't count that well, so
episode 5. She's nodding. Yes. She doesn't like to say. We haven't bought her a mic yet, so whenever she comes on, there's just like this crazy echo. It's not good. So we just like to keep her muted.
I prefer it.
Yeah. But I think it was episode 5. She nodded her head. It was episode 5. We talked about packages and pricing. We talked about how to put them together. So like if you want all the details of like how to figure out how much time something is going to take you to deliver a service and what to add in that service, you can go back to episode 5 for a full rundown of that. Just skip past all of the nonsense at the beginning. I don't remember what time's there, but just keep pressing the like 15-second skip thing until you hear it. And then review us and give us a good review, of course.
Right.
But what I want to really hit on here that I didn't really talk about there as much is the importance of profit. And as you transition from being somebody who works in the gym and trades time for money, basically, what that transition is predicated on, this idea of going from working in a business to having a business work for you, is largely predicated on profit. A lot of people who work at a business, well, they think that taking a salary out of that business is good. It's like the business itself doesn't need to be profitable as long as I can take a salary. It's like, well, that basically means that you're just hiring yourself for a job, which probably means that you're going to work harder, which is fine to start. Like, don't get me wrong, that's fine to start. But ultimately, you want to be taking a salary and you also want to be generating a profit margin from that business. And that's how my business is structured. So I'm an employee of my corporation. My corporation pays me a salary like it pays all of our other employees. And then of course, myself and my wife, who are the, who are the owners of the business, will get dividends if there's profit at the end of the year. We'll invest the profit in the corporation or whatever it is. But you kind of need to look at a business and say, okay, what profit do I want to generate first, ultimately, before you start to decide what you're going to charge. I think that's the missing element for a lot of people. And you don't include your own salary in the profit calculations. So if you know that you want to make, let's say, $100,000 a year for your salary, well, and you know you want to make, let's say, $20,000 in profit, well, your company then needs to exceed $120,000 in terms of revenue versus expenses. So what is that percentage for you? For online trainers that are sort of going, and I'll kind of lay it out the way that like it should be kind of an online training, which keep in mind is an anomaly. One of the reasons why we push online training so much is because you have the ability to have a really big profit margin early on,
Right.
which makes it way easier to start the process of hiring out and delegating and growing. Businesses where you're forced into a 15, 20% profit margin if you do a good job early are really, really hard to grow. You have to be, put it this way, you got to be way more responsible early on
Right.
than you have to be as an online trainer.
That's not us.
No,
Sure.
I'd be out.
Yeah. It's not us.
Well, but like that's why brick and mortar often is so hard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With online training, you should be at an 80 to 85% profit margin for the first 100 to 150,000 that you make, which is like, for anybody who understands real business, is obscene, like absolutely obscene.
Right.
Because then if you want to continue growing it to 300 to 500,000, you will likely have to cut down your profit margin to 35 to 40%. Then if you want to grow it to $1 million, you'll likely have to grow it from 30 to 40%. And then you should be able to maintain that. So I'll give you an example. So I'll give you an exact example of how this plays out. Okay. And exactly how the calculations look.
Do it.
We're building online trainer coaching. I don't know exactly when this episode's going to air, but the beta test will go out like pretty close to when this episode is airing. And the beta test is just for Online Trainer Academy students, but we're building an online training company that specializes in working with personal trainers and nutrition coaches and gym owners on their fitness. Because we've just identified a need where a lot of trainers, they just, offset, like delegate your workouts to us, like let us take care of you. Let us, like a lot of trainers that we found and we've spoken to from time to time have struggled with their own workouts, and we're like, this is a problem nobody talks about. Because I did too. And I'm happy to tell my story. And I actually wrote a letter of my story that I'm going to send to some of our students in a few weeks. But it's this idea of if people feeling like a fraud, people feeling like imposters. Because, how could I tell somebody else to do something that I'm not even doing myself? How can I tell somebody that something is better than nothing when I can't follow my own advice? Mm-hmm. And so we're building an online training business to take care of that. And we are building it with the expectancy that it's something that people really want and need, but also that it's going to grow very, very quickly and scale very, very quickly. So we're building all of the pieces of it and leveraging the tech and the automation. We're bringing on one of the best personal trainers in the world to do the coaches. Literally, if you Google who is the best personal trainer in the world, his name comes up. I kid you not. And in the Google search widget, his name comes up.
Oh.
And then of course we have like an amazing community accountability group, and we're doing small group accountability. And so in building all of this out, I basically looked at this and I said, for it to make sense for a company to do this, we need to turn this into a minimum $1 million income stream within the first 12 months of it running, with a 40% profit margin. So then it just becomes a matter of working out the numbers. Well, then we have our targets that we need to hit. So, okay, we're going to charge for the beta group $500 for 12 weeks, or $208 a month for 3 months. And we'll give people the option to sign up for 6 months a year. And then we're likely going to move it up to $700 after the first beta group. But at that $500 mark, okay, well, if you have at $500, you need 2,000 clients to get to $1 million, which means you need 500 people every 3 months. If you have a 20 to 30% retention rate, how does that kind of affect the numbers? And so I built a spreadsheet, right? And I said, okay, $1 million equals 500 every 4 months. Okay. How much total revenue do we have? Our staff that's working on this project, how much time are they going to be spending on it? What percentage of their salary is going to be dedicated towards this project? Okay, pull that out first. So do the same thing, even if it's just you, pull out your salary first.
Mhm.
So if we know for this first group of 100 people, we're going to make $50,000. Okay, our staffing cost is going to be about 16,000, 16,500, whatever it is. Then we said, okay, what's our software expenses going to be? Any legal expenses to get it up and running, all of that kind of stuff. And then other coaches to run the program. So this is what I mean. If you don't need other coaches to run the program and stuff like that, that's basically all of your expenses.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, which means your profit margin is super high. But we're building this thing out in a way that we will expect to have 15 to 20 coaches within the first year working with 50 people at a time each. And so obviously that has to be part of our calculation. So, okay, basically I looked then and I said, what can I pay the coaches?
Mm-hmm.
And where do I want to incentivize them? Because again, with this model, we are providing all of the programming. We're providing the entire system of messaging and automation and software. Literally, our coaches are logging in and everything's going to be there for their clients and they're going to just coach. And then we're providing all of the marketing, all of the client generation, all of the sales. Right. So the truth of the matter is the coaches are actually not doing that much and they're reasonably expendable
right.
for the first group of clients that they work with. But if a coach retains a client, i.e. if that coach does a good job and retains a client, they literally get a 2 times bump. So if they retain a client, they get double the second time they train that client than they get for the first time.
Oh, wow.
So as you're building out your model, you need to look at your profit, and you also need to look at what habits you want to incentivize and how you want to incentivize it. So Len is actually going to be one of our coaches.
Yay.
For this program.
Yeah, I am.
And so Len knows this, right? Like we're paying you a base we're going to start with 20 clients each coach for the beta, just because we don't know exactly what it is, but we're going to pay a base. And it's not, I mean, it's not unfair, but it's not super high.
Right.
But our coaches should be able to double their base the next 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's how we incentivize them. And so I basically did these calculations and worked through the spreadsheet of all the expenses, starting with, okay, here's the revenue we're going to generate. And then I worked down the list and I said, we're actually at a 58% profit margin. That's great. So then I said, we have 18%. I can't remember the exact numbers. I don't have it in front of me, so I'll use percentages. But I'll say we have 18% to play with. We can decide to take that extra profit and just put it on a bottom line. But early on in a project, it's probably better if you have extra money to spend and you can spend it well, to grow the thing faster, mm-hmm. or help build it better. So I looked around and I found a developer who's going to actually basically manage all of the operations and the development from a tech standpoint. And we're delegating all of that. Well, we expected to do it. We're delegating off of that. So now this team is building out the entire system for us. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is they're going to be the ones loading all of the programs, loading all of the messaging, building out the coaches' teams, because each coach is going to have teams of 5 that they manage. So mm-hmm. building out all of the coaches' teams, they're doing all of that. And then I looked at it and I said, okay, we still got some money left over. Here's our advertising marketing budget. And so the spreadsheet now is like, okay, if we have 500 clients, if we have 1,000 clients, if we have 1,500 clients, if we have 2,000 clients, all of the numbers, the calculations we built out basically step by step by step by step by step. And it actually shows me, it's like I could spend $150,000 on ads to acquire these clients and still maintain a 40% profit margin, which I said was my goal at the beginning of it. Right. And I don't think that we will, and I mean, like in some cases we can spend even more than that, but you would never know that if you didn't actually start with saying, okay, what profit margin do I want to have?
Right.
How much money are we going to make? What are my realistic expenses, including my time, including my coach's time, software, all of that, delegation, assistance, whatever. And basically, is there money left over? And if there's no money left over for marketing and advertising, you probably need to charge more. Right? Mm-hmm. If you're like in a negative and you're not hitting that profit margin, you probably need to charge more. You probably need to really look at your model But in a lot of cases, what it does is it just provides clarity. Because then also you could go to a marketing firm if you don't know how to do it. And you can go to that marketing firm and be like, I need you to get me 500 customers that are going to pay me $500 for 3 months.
Right.
I've got 150 grand to spend. Can you do that? What guarantees can you build around that? Is that reasonable? That's how you build your profit and pricing model if you really want to build something that builds, if you really want to build something that scales.
So Jonathan, if I may, I'd like to ask you a question, and then I'd like to go to my in the field correspondent, Catalina Belmontes. So what you're saying is, on any level, as an online coach, you want to begin with the end in mind. Is that what you're saying? And I'm going to backwards engineer from there.
Yes and no. I keep fixing my hair.
That's all right. It's lovely. I'm enjoying it.
I can see why you're touching it often. It's beautiful.
It's like backwards.
It's beautiful.
We're talking about it too much.
I'm so distracted by how good.
I haven't heard a word you said. I'm just looking at your hair, John.
I'm totally distracted. We're fascinated with your haircut right now.
And Carolina, I'm basking in your glow. So
thank you.
I'm just picturing you on that golden throne, and I can't focus. So yes and no. It was your answer to the question. Yes, begin with the end in mind, but no, not really. Walk me through that.
We're just going to leave it at that. We're just not going to explain that. We're just going to say yes and no.
Okay, sounds good. That's how I like it down.
Yes, begin with the end in mind, but be willing to flow, because you don't really know yet.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know. Like, you haven't started the process yet. So I think that you're going to discover so much, and then just allow yourself to play, if I understand what you're saying.
Allow yourself to play within certain constraints, 100%. And so what are the most important aspects here? And this is, a little bit of what we're trying to do covertly, I think, is just try to help fitness professionals, whether you're online or not, just be a little bit more responsible on how you structure your business and how you view money and how you set up yourself. Right. And so what is really, really important to keep in mind here? Number one is appreciating what profit is and isn't. Profit isn't paying yourself a salary. Profit is what's left at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And you always want to build a business that generates profit. Our entire capitalist structure is fundamentally based on building businesses that generate profit.
Right.
There is literally nothing else that it's based on.
Right.
For better or for worse. I'm reasonably socialist. So
right.
For better or for worse, that's kind of how it works. And there's a lot of for worse with that, but that's how it works. And the next is, like, you do want to pay yourself a salary. That salary should cover all of your bills. The profit is what generates you wealth.
Right.
And the profit, and then the final thing is model this out. Gain that awareness. Mm-hmm. You should never go into building something that you want to build to be reasonably big. You should never go into building something and have no clue what you can spend or how the model changes as you spend more. Advertising pundits will basically say, well, as long as you can spend $1 and make $1.10, then spend as many dollars as you can. You shouldn't really have a budget, which I don't disagree with, but that's not very good advice to somebody who doesn't have a lot of dollars, because we all know how casinos work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have a 45% advantage over the house, which doesn't happen, but let's say you do, you're still going to have to spend a lot of money for a very long period of time in order for that to even out, for you to guarantee that you're going to win.
Right.
So you could, even if you have winning ads, you're going to be in the hole for a while.
Right.
You kind of need to know at least what you are able to spend in aggregate based off of your goal at any stage of the game. And then if things are going well, that's fantastic. How does that change things? Right? So if we know that we could spend, these aren't exactly our numbers. I think our numbers are a little bit more than this, but if we know that we could spend, let's say $150,000 to acquire 500 customers, we'll combine that with our list, combine that with organic, combine that with retained customers. Let's say we only spend 100. Well, now we got $50,000 extra. So now our choice is, do we take that as extra profit and say, great, or do we continue to put that into ads and try to get 550, 600 customers, right? Or do we hire additional coaches, or do we go on a nice vacation? I don't know.
Right.
But
so
but how does that change, right? But the fundamental things to keep in mind are like, what is profit? What isn't profit? Can you build your model out to understand that if you want to hit a certain profit mark and you have a revenue goal, kick out your expenses. How does that lay out now in terms of how much you can spend, how much you can pay other coaches, all of that kind of stuff?
So to that makes sense. And so to Carol's point, and I'm going to defer to Carolina here. It is really a matter of understanding the number that you start with. But as you start to get engaged and you're paying attention to those numbers, there may be some changes that you can make, either to save your neck or through the realization of, okay, I may have a little extra. Yep. What's the smartest place to defer the little extra to? So Carol, what I wanted to ask you, because we went through the same experience with OTA2, which is why I love OTA2, is because my experience was actually more money for less time. And that speaks to sort of Jonathan's, the first thing he said, which is getting away from the time for money exchange. Was your experience with OTA2 that it increased your profitability, but it also increased your time just because of your asking price?
So I had the same experience as you, like more money, less time. Like, I feel like people forget that a lot of the grind of this business happens upfront in the beginning when you're creating your content, when you're creating your welcome package. Like, once you have a welcome package, you're not going to have to reinvent the wheel every time you have a new client. You might make some modifications because the client has a certain interest or goal in mind, but you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just already working with the bones of what you created up front. And so you're able to reuse and recycle. So that saves you enormous amounts of time. And the other thing too, for example, in my very beginnings, like before I ever met any of you wonderful people, when I was just getting started in my own kind of like coaching and online coaching and everything, I don't think people understand how broke I was. Like, I had like zero money, like no money. Like, even if I had wanted to invest in even business cards or whatever, there just wasn't a possibility because I was not in a position to do that. And so for me, it became almost like a game of how much money can I make without having to spend any money at all. And so those are the kinds of constraints for me that spark my creativity. They force me to become inventive because I can't just throw money at the solution. I can just throw money and make the problem go away. I don't have money to throw at it. So it's like, how am I going to hustle? How am I going to? And so that was a super creative and super explosive part of my life that I look back on with, and I cherish it because it's like, holy shit, like, look at all the things that I did and all the people that I met and all the money that I brought in, investing $0 because I did not have them.
So Jonathan, and great point, Keto. So Jonathan, let me defer back to you. Like, is that another way to increase profitability? I mean, obviously we're paying, Amber says we're almost out of time. Obviously you're increasing, by knowing the numbers, but if you can also save the time, maybe is there something to be said for not only finding extra income, extra revenue, but for finding extra time that you can also defer? Because if I find extra money, I can defer that to something. But if I find extra time, can I defer extra labor if I choose to?
Yeah, I mean, you can. It comes down to what you want to get out of this thing, right? Do you want to build something really big? Do you want to have a lot more time with your family? I mean, and you might be able to do both. But the point is that you need to be in the driver's seat to be able to make those decisions.
That makes sense.
What really matters. And the other point that we didn't quite hit on that I'll mention just before we wrap it up, which is what Amber always writes on the note. Wrap it up, B. Is you kind of like, if you have profit in your company, then you have money saved for a rainy day in case, I don't know, a pandemic happens.
COVID. Yeah.
Like, that's why companies generate profit and save, because there will always be a time, no matter how good a company is, that things don't go quite right.
Absolutely.
We had a few month period last year where we made a couple bets that didn't work out. And our company, for the first time ever, actually was in the red. First time ever. We got out of it reasonably quick. But if we didn't have, it was like 3 or 4 months, I think we were in the red.
Mhm.
But if we didn't have money put in the bank because we were able to generate profit in the years previous and we didn't spend all of it, we would have been forced to be a much more reactive to the problem, which would have backed us into corners and potentially made decisions that either were not good for the long-term business or kind of went against our values.
That's the thing. You sacrifice yourself, right? When you're put in those tough decisions.
Yeah.
Yes. So PTDC was almost on the corner, guys.
Wasn't almost on the corner.
Okay.
But
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
That's how I interpreted it.
You know what it is, man? When you own a business, like for a lot of years, from like 2013 to 2016, we were literally the only game in town for online training.
Right.
So even though it wasn't as known, we were the only people around. And I mean, first mover advantage, we were lucky, all of these things.
Right.
But it really, to be completely frank, wasn't that hard. And so I didn't need, which is why I'm so passionate about this stuff now, because I didn't actually need to manage finances stuff. I mean, that profit was so high, like we didn't need to manage finances and stuff like that. And then what happened is there started to get, an expense creep. Like basically our revenues never really dipped, but they also stopped going up. So they kind of, stabilized, and expenses just creeped up over the course of like 2 years. And that's a scary thing to see month after month after month. Basically, like every month you're making the same amount of money and you're spending a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then at one point when those two lines cross is a very scary moment in business.
Don't cross the streams.
That's a trend. You don't cross the streams.
I just got it. That took me a second. I just got it. Oh God.
I'm done. Bye.
Wrap it up. We're done. Nothing more to say here. Don't cross the streams. That's all you need to know.
An episode of the Online Trainer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, show notes can be found. I got to do show notes. Show notes can be found. Let's see. What does the paper say? onlinetrainer.com/podcast. Leave us some reviews. Keep coming with those comments. Talking to you, Natasha Peak in Australia from Peak Fitness. We're loving your commentary on the YouTube. Keep commenting. We read every last one and make major decisions based on each one of your 3 or 4 word comments. We love you. We'll see you guys next time. Jingle.
This is the Online Trainer Show. Trainer Show. Trainer Show. This is the Online Trainer Show.
We shouldn't have a podcast.